2 meals, one vegetarian and one non-vegetarian, an entree. And you get 2 hours to do it. And you have the access of the whole kitchen. So and then pretty much that's it. And then if you pass that, you can get hired in on the spot, or you might be called in for a third interview, and the third interview would be to hire you. And that's pretty much how it plays out. And it might sound scary, but it really isn't, because like I said, it really has to do a lot with the fit. It goes more to that than skills. Skills need to be there, but skills don't have to be perfect.
Got you. Now, I know health is a big deal, and what you eat can determine literally how long you live. What are your thoughts with how fast food giants like Burger King, Subway, KFC, what do you feel about them impacting our youth and specifically minorities and people of color?
I feel that I really wish we could just do away with all of it, but I know that it is a money-driven, multi-trillion-dollar industry in the United States. So I know that's not going away anywhere anytime soon. I feel that the alternatives that they offer or trying to offer are just a marketing bid. I mean, McDonald's is coming out with supposedly healthier alternatives on their menu, but the alternatives that they're offering aren't healthy. They're just a step above what they're already doing, which is, if anybody has seen Super Size Me, you know what that means. And if you haven't, it's just that the more you eat of that, the more it gets in your system, and the more you're more susceptible to all kinds of diseases that are out there, especially diabetes, which now affects 30% of our population. And in children, it's 20%. That is unheard of. 30 years ago, you never heard of kids having diabetes. That, it was always thought of as a senior disease. Across the board, that isn't true now. And the numbers are staggering in the African-American community and people of color. It's unreal.
It's interesting because being at Google and being on the campus, I mean, they have so many healthy options available.
Yes.
It's unreal. It's almost, but it seems like it's such a natural fit. I guess I'd be curious, why do you think on a personal level that we have so many fast food, fried chicken type venues in every neighborhood in the USA? It feels like it's done by design. I'd just like to know what you think about that, and what did slavery do to the people, to us as a people in terms of the food that we eat?
Oh, well, that definitely is a result. It's a residual result of slavery. It's institutionalized type slavery, in that the foods that we were given when we came from the motherland have totally clogged our systems, and it's now, over time, it's showing up. Because, when we came from the motherland, we didn't drink milk. That's why most African Americans are lactose intolerant. That is a true fact. And sugar was only used, we only had sugar in certain places where they had sugar cane, where it grew in certain regions of the continent, Africa. Africa has 86 countries, so it's not like you say Africa and it's all the same. It's all different. And it's huge, and it's wonderful and very diverse. And everything that people eat mostly is of the land, indigenous, and we're not carnivores by choice. Only in some regions do they eat meat. In some countries, Nigeria, a lot of meat. South Africa, you can look at that and apartheid and look at that as far as slavery, the food they eat. The heaviest people with the largest BMI, or the vast BMI, which is your body fat index, is in South Africa, of the whole continent, and the Congo. Why is that? Because that's where apartheid was spread, and in the Congo, where the French took over and came in and spread a lot of rich foods that are chunked with dairy that we weren't used to eating. And in South Africa, you ate the people ate the leavings, just like slavery. So the leavings were all fat, all pure fat. Yeah, you can make it taste good, but you definitely are going to, your body's going to pay for that. Your body's going to be very high in fat content. So it played into it in that way, and it's come into this country generation after generation. And of course, in neighborhoods where you are, where you see more poverty, people tend to have to make the buck stretch. But there are ways you can make the buck stretch totally without ever going to a fast food restaurant, ever.
Wow. So, I mean, you spoke on it in terms of speaking on diabetes and how it used to be a disease that mostly affected our older generation or seniors. Why is it so prevalent in the black community now, in your opinion?
Because of the sugar content. Because people, we have with the onset of the internet, the millennium changed. We listen now, we know everything, but our knowledge is only power when you use it, to me. Knowing it is one thing, but putting it into action is another thing. We know that sugar is number one killer. It's not about fat. It's not about sodium anymore. It's about sugar. Sugar is the number one killer. We know all these things, but we don't put them into action as far as cutting them out of our diet completely. That is why, especially in the African American community, there are per capita more fast food restaurants, and people, like I said, think that I don't have the money, so I have to go here, as opposed to what I have seen in other communities with other ethnic groups. Like if there's fast food and they're going to it, it's because of convenience, and they're not eating it as often. It's like, oh, I gotta go look, I'm in a hurry, I've got to get something, let me grab something, I need to eat something. In what I've noticed in the African American community and other poor communities, people eat it every single day. Your system can only take so much. You have to think of our systems just like liken it to a drain or in a sink. If you keep eating things our body can't process, it just clogs it up, it backs up. What can it do with it? Well, then it makes our insulin inefficient. It doesn't work for us anymore. It makes everything that we need to get it out. Food is supposed to really just be for nourishment, not for taste. It's to get fuel to pass through your body and go out as quickly as possible. Yeah. So when when you're eating things that are going to cause constipation, cause bloating, you don't even know what's going on, you have gas, and you continue to eat it, your whole system goes wacko. And because of our genetic code, which is really important, everybody has a genetic code, that tells you, it's a map of what your ancestors ate and why they looked the way they did. Why most of our ancestors that came here as a result of slavery were very lean, were very ripped, were very, as they were worked, they had like needle body fat. They would look like the top athletes of today. Yeah. And why is that? It's because of what they ate when they were at home, in their homeland. Most of them were omnivores. They weren't carnivorous. So that plays into why, like I said, it goes all the way back to where you come from, what foods you can eat and what foods provide what you need. And we could always go back to that. Yeah. But we have to start now. It can't be still talking about it. I can't even believe we're still having this discussion in 2017. This is stuff we learned in the early 80s, and here it is 2017, and we haven't progressed. We've regressed to the point that, like I said, now we have children with onset diabetes or diabetes in elementary school.
Right. Now
it's staggering.
I know there was an experiment done on Asians who move or visit America and eat our fast foods, and reports show they gain weight, incredibly
rapidly.
And I guess, what do you think that says to a lot of people? Because it seems like, we've seen a lot of even our young, our young people developing so much, more quickly. And, I don't know if it's a result of steroids or whatever they're using for animals, but what do you think?
Yes. Well, the animals are chunked full of steroids and harmful hormones for them to plump up and get bigger faster, because, again, it's about the dollar. It's about making that money. So they do anything they can to have it happen faster than it would naturally. So then it causes all our bodies to react, not proact, but react to that. The whole thing with the Asian community, I live next door to a cardiologist from Beijing. When he got here last year, he's about 5'4", 5'5". He probably weighed 120 pounds. He is now a healthy 160. I can't even believe it. I saw him the other day, and I was like, wow. And because every single day when he got here, he was eating every single day one of these fast food places, either McDonald's or this, it's an Asian, Panda Express, which is full of sugar and salt. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's like the only thing on that menu I would tell someone to eat are the steamed vegetables and the chicken with no sauce on it, which is really good. It's very flavorful, but the teriyaki chicken without the sauce and the steamed vegetables, that's it, and the brown rice. That's it. Everything else is just sugar. So what happened was his genetic code is not used to that, because in Beijing, everything's fresh. And yes, they eat rice every day, but that's their genetic code. That's what they've been eating since the beginning of time. So their body is used to processing it at a rate where it doesn't stick and it's low on their glycemic index. That's why they're not normally a heavy people.
Gotcha.
So they come here and they get chunked full of sugar and salt, and that's the result.
Now let me ask you this: is pork, milk, American cheese, or the yellow cheese, is that good or bad, and what's real?
The yellow cheese. Have you ever seen a cow poop anything orange or have yellow milk? No, so it's not real. I wish they would take it off the market again. They're not going to, because of the money. American cheese is a hybrid. It was made in the 50s, and the reason it was made, just like iceberg lettuce, that's a hybrid. That's not real greens. When you talk about greens, it's 98% water. So it was made for convenience, and it was also made for the economy to grow in a way where money could be made and the profit margin would go up. So yellow cheese, no, out the door without a doubt. And for most communities that are not of color, but African American especially, shouldn't be eating cheese unless it's from goats or sheep, because our bodies process that and we're used to that. So, number one, that's not good. Pork is okay it's modified, as long as you're not having it every day. If you're having pork once a week, it's not harmful and not fried. If you're steaming it, if you're baking it, if you're having lean pork, which is not expensive, you learn how to cook it. If you're boiling it and making a stew, it's great. Milk, did you say milk?
Yes.
Unless it's almond milk, rice milk, or goat milk, I say no. If we're talking about especially communities of people of color. And people that aren't. The only animals that continue to eat milk after they're weaned off of it are us, are humans. Every other animal, they use milk when the babies are first born because that vitamin D is necessary and needed in those amounts. As soon as the baby's weaned off, they don't ever eat it. They never drink it. They never drink it. So that's a no. So your question was milk, pork,
and yellow or American cheese. And you
yellow American cheese.
I wanted to ask you too is, so what's the difference between foods from Africa, the Caribbean, versus American food, in your opinion?
If you're talking about produce, the foods from Africa, for the most part, that's a huge continent. Again, like I said, it depends on which country. But the Caribbean, the foods are not sprayed with anything that will harm humans or the land. So the foods are very fresh. Every time I go to Jamaica, I'm just like load up on the produce. Is so fresh and so wonderful that I just get full. just eating it. It's just wonderful eating it raw or steaming it, or if I saute it and put just a tad of salt. You don't even need to put a lot. A little lime, a little salt and pepper, maybe toss in a little olive oil, whatever